and welcome to Narrowboat Chef. Today, not on the menu, we are not doing a cooking recipe vlog today. We're doing something a little bit different.
Yeah, lately we've noticed that our kitchen knives have been getting quite blunt, and recently we've been given a whetstone to sharpen them. So we thought we'd teach you how to maintain your knives and to keep that razor edge on them.
Yes, so just show you how we maintain our knives.
So let's get sharpening.
Let's get sharpening.
So a good way to tell if your knives are decently sharpened is to cut a tomato, especially the more ripe ones. And I'm just going to do a demonstration to show you how blunt ours are. So as you can see, that did not go through the tomato very easily. It should pierce the skin easily, and just without much effort the knife should do most of the work. But as you can see, that started to squish the tomato, because unfortunately we just haven't had the stone to maintain the knives for the last 6 months or so.
And that all changes today.
That all changes today. So I've got almost all my stuff prepared. Today I'm sharpening my chef's knife, which is the most common one used. So I started off with my non-slip mat, and on top of that I've just used a sponge cloth to absorb all the extra water. You can just use a green cloth, blue cloth, or just a tea towel or something, just something that'll stop the stone from sliding around. And I've been soaking my stone in water, so I've been soaking it for about 5 to 10 minutes. Doesn't take that long, but you just need to have it soaked in water. That way it's the nice lubricant for the knives. I don't use oil or dishwashing soap. I've seen people use that. Oil, unless you've got a machine oil, kinda the vegetable oils just dry up and they get stuck into the grit, and it makes it harder to sharpen the more oil stuck on it. And a similar thing happens to soap. So I set my stone in the middle of my cloth, facing out long ways to where I am. I keep my water nearby, so you need to keep it quite wet. Now I start off with my knife, and I'll work away from myself, moving out. So with the chef's knives, there's a couple of different techniques. You lay down on the stone, the edge. I always kind of use my thumb, putting the thumb down onto the edge of onto the stone, then placing the back of the knife, the spine of the knife, about halfway onto my thumb, and then that should give you a rough angle of where to sharpen it. If you've got smaller thumbs, just go up higher on the thumb. And what we do is we press down very lightly, starting from the back or the heel of the knife, using our fingers to hold about the middle so you're not losing pressure as you move the knife along. And then you just move the knife up, just like that, always maintaining the angle. And this way you're using the whole stone and you're sharpening the whole blade, just in one motion. So I usually count to 5 or 10, and then you switch over and do it on the other side. We always start on the coarser grit. So once we finish with the coarser grit, we'll move over to the finer grit. And you want to do most of your sharpening on the finer grit. You just want to use the coarse grit just to get those angles in there, and then you'll want to use your fine grit to actually sharpen the blade. So I'll sharpen it 10 times on the grit side with one edge of the blade, 10 times, switch it over 10 times on the other side of the blade, and then you do that 4 times, and then we'll switch over to the fine grit. Just always remembering to wet your stone. A different technique you'll occasionally see, which is more often used on Japanese knives, is just to hold the blade at your angle and to just move it up and down the blade like this, and you kind of do the knife in sections, which sometimes can be a problem when it comes to European knives, because most European knives like this only have like a very small part of it which is actually fairly straight. The rest of the blade is curved, and that's why I use the first technique, because it maintains that curve. It's especially useful with these types of knives. So now we're going to switch over to the finer grit, and this is where you're going to spend most of your time. So we'll just do the same process again. We'll have it on one side of the edge, and we'll do 10, sharpen it 10 times, and then we'll switch it over to the other edge and do that 10 times. And we'll do that back and forth, probably about another, 10 times altogether? So you'll be like running along the thing about 100 times. And you want it to do it mostly on the fine grit, because that'll give you your razor edge. You don't want to do a whole lot of pressure, especially at first. You just want to lay the knife down with a small amount of pressure while supporting the middle of the blade and maintaining that constant pressure right through. Yep, so as we're nearing to the end of our sharpening on the fine grit, we'll start taking down the number of times we're sharpening on each edge. So what I mean is, like, we're doing the 10 and then the 10, and as we get closer towards we're almost finished, we'll drop it down to about 5, and we'll do that a few times, and then 2, 2, 2, and then we'll do a few where it's 1, 1, 1, 1, 1. It's like, as you're sharpening it, you want to get that nice edge shape, but as you're sharpening it 10, 10, 10, 10, and then 10, 10, 10, 10, exaggerated version, we want to get it closer and closer to the middle, so it creates a nice cutting, how do I say it? It cuts straight down. If you put too much on one edge, it'll start curving off as you cut, and you want to go straight down with these knives. So that's our knife pretty much sharpened. I like to finish it on a steel, a fine grit steel. If you have a ceramic steel, that's okay. That's a super fine one. They're very expensive and they break, so that's why I don't have one. I just have a fine steel. And usually I'll start at the bottom, like that, with the corner on the edge, and at the same angle. And then this just polishes the edge up a little bit more. Do it slowly. So you want to run it up almost the full length of the steel. And we'll do this to maintain the knife as well. So before or after every job, we'll just do this. Alright, so now that our knives are sharpened, it's time to do a test cut on a tomato and see how well we've done. As you can see, that cut through much easier. I was even able to get very thin little pieces of tomato. And it's well worth maintaining your knives just for the ease of use. And yeah, it's fantastic when the knives are sharp.
You're happy now, aren't you?
Yeah, we've been meaning to get a stone for quite a while now, but either we haven't found one that was acceptable, or they were too small, or a bit weird.
Yeah.
And now we finally got one. We're like, yes! Sharp knives again. So that technique should work for most of your commonly used chef's knives. There are different techniques for different knives, like Japanese knives use a different technique because a lot of them have more of a straight blade. So you just use that technique and you should be fine. So that's our technique for sharpening knives. Some other people will do it differently, but that's how I maintain my knives.
And that's how I do it, because he told me how to do it when I was an apprentice.
And working in a commercial kitchen, I used to do that once every 3 months on all my knives. Home cooks probably wouldn't need to do it nearly that often, depending on how heavily you use your knives, once per 6 months to 12 months. It's much easier to maintain if you use a steel before or after. Every time you do a job, every time you cut something, just run it over steel a few times just to maintain that edge. It makes it just so much easier, and you have to do that big job less often.
Yeah. So some people have their own other ways of sharpening knives. There's no, I guess,
There's no like standard way
no.
of doing a knife. If you have a technique that you use and
it works for you, and
you
your
get a
knife
good
is
edge,
sharp.
yeah.
So that is our video for this week. I hope you found it useful, and now you have an idea how to sharpen your knives at home. We will put a link down in the description below for some decent stones if you're not quite sure.
Decent stones. We'll also put some links to the chef's knives that we use. We use a basic Victorinox with a resin plastic handle.
These are like the best knives. Like
They're not the best knives. They're the best of the reasonably priced ones. I often suggest to apprentices and first-time chefs to buy these knives because they're usually not too expensive. They're anywhere from about 30 to 50 pounds for your basic knives, without having to spend £400-500 on a single knife.
Yes, they're just a good all-round decent blade.
And if you break them, you're not heartbroken.
Yeah.
You're just like, oh no. Oh, well, at least I can get another one.
So we'll put a few of those links down below. So if you want to go and check those out and get yourself some new knives or a stone for the knives you've already got, then they'll be down below.
And a steel. We'll put a link for a steel.
And a steel. And we will see you next time.
Bye.